I'm hoping this is the last test drive before we have to go. This is Dr. Lynn of Clan McDonald, and I am so happy to be stood here, though I have got no idea exactly what I'm going to say. But I do have a whiteboard here with some reminders of things to help me stay on topic. And first of all, I just wanted to say it's probably going to take me a little bit of time to relax into this, but bear with me if you want to. This is my friend Bertha, and she is amazing. I love her because well, first of all, she's plastic, so don't be scared. Second of all, I first met her in January and I really wanted her, but I left her behind. And the more I thought about it, the more I thought, because I had, I'd been asked, well, what would a doctor want with a skeleton on her YouTube channel? And that was a really good question, because I was like, put on a track to find things. I was like, this is a great idea. So I went back and got her. We had a bit of an awkward first start. So I was gonna start again from scratch, but I quite like what I just did, so I'm keeping it. And welcome now to my YouTube channel, which properly gets started today, the 25th of May, 2026. So it's exciting to do this. I've got no idea what I'm going to talk about. I have got ADHD, which means even though I have a whole whiteboard there and I've just said I'm going to be looking on the whiteboard, I turn around and it's blank, but it's got Xena plus Emma, her friend, with love hearts from the time they painted this room, which was so lovely of them. So I'm actually quite pleased it's just got that on it. So bear with me. What I aim to do here is not to replace anyone's medical care with anything. What I would really like to do, and I have to say I am not with the GMC, I left medicine in 2012, as in left the partnership I was in within the NHS, the general practice partnership, due to burnout and stress, primarily. I didn't know I had ADHD at the time. Had I known, things might have been a little bit more manageable, but I actually found today the results of my old MRCGP exam that I did in 2004. And it was really funny to me now to look back on those marks, because I got 80% for the medical knowledge part. I got 85% for my research part, and I got something like 65% for organisation. Now I look back and laugh. I'm like, well, yeah, that's to form, right? So whatever I've done in my past has been of such huge educational value that I really got into anatomy, biochemistry, physiology, all of those sciences that we learned thoroughly in the first 2 years of university. And then we went on to learn more specifically microbiology, pathology, a lot more things in the next years, but also doing clinical work as well. So clinical work means being a medical student in hospitals, learning from a lot of people. Because I started my degree in 1990 in Glasgow, I started when I was meant to. I didn't get delayed going from school to uni. Probably because my mum and dad were so good at providing such an amazing, supportive, especially for education, for all the things, but heavily well organised environment for me to thrive my best in. So I just thought I was like everyone else. I had no idea why I left it to the last minute to study every single time I had an exam. Now I know that 4 hours of extremely high, hyper-focused genia, gamma, genius. See, I can't always get my words out properly, but I do try. Um, brainwave status is the equivalent of 4 weeks of a neurotypical efforting to study. So I honestly thought I was a terrible person for always leaving at the last minute. Why didn't I do, a better job up in the run for an exam, when actually that's not how I operate at all. If something is really, really highly interesting to me, I will run at it and run at it and run at it till I've learned it. And then I'll be like, on to the next thing, run at it, run at it, run at it, run at it, run at it. Sounds like Run Rabbit. Actually, I'm going to tell you about something right now that is of really huge value. So I was a bit nervous earlier on because I'm like, what am I going to say? Because I've been strictly instructed to not script anything, which is probably why I've now turned up with a whiteboard with nothing on it. But that's okay. So I have got 3 homeopathic remedies here, and I was trained by Dr. David Riley, who I'm very, 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 very excited to be seeing again soon. And he's actually a towering giant in terms of both medicine, traditional physician and a traditional GP, and he is also instrumental in integrative care in Scotland, and he actually taught me homeopathy. So I did that when I was actually a GP registrar. And literally a little piece of paper flew into my dooket one day, and I picked it up and I thought, what? I can actually learn homeopathy. This is amazing. And yes, back then in 2004, 2005, until about 2011, GPs were able to prescribe homeopathy, even if they weren't trained in it, on a prescription, because it's so safe. And because it's very, very cheap. And when you get the right remedy, it works really, really well. So I actually did train up in homeopathy on NHS expense via the powers that be that help run the GP registrar's training schemes. And I was on a very high class training scheme by Professor Ronald McVicker, his training scheme, and I was actually his last GP registrar, and he then we partnered up within the wider practice until I left, but he after that became the postgraduate dean of the entire north of Scotland medical education for every doctor, not just GPs, which is huge. And I can tell you this, I was his trainee for 1.5 years, and I could never have imagined anyone could have done a better job teaching me. So I was very, very blessed and privileged to be with him. And one of the things that he always taught me was Lynn, you're not training to know everything about everything. He said you're training to become a good consulter. And he's very, very, very big on that, that the consultation is so powerful, such a healing tool in itself, as is Dr. Riley. So I learned from great men and great teachers at university. That is my old university there, Glasgow University, which is my alma mater. Might show you the picture at some point better, but alma mater means nurturing mother, which is awesome. So I always have my MBCHB no matter what, because I earned my medical degree. Now, back to the first story. It took me 9 years, and it doesn't normally take 9 years to do this, but in my journey, from the start, 1990 to then graduating in 1999, there were a lot of things going on in the life of Lynn. So I'd been taken out of a small town, I'd gone into university, had no idea how rubbish I was at organisational skills, at life skills, at, regulating myself, emotional dysregulation all over the place, hyper thought processing all over the place, and I could not figure out what was going on. Since I've now realised that I do have it, and it's florid. You can see I fidget, and there's a reason why people with ADHD fidget a lot. There's a reason. So that's normal for me. I can't stay in flow state and switch it off. My name itself means waterfall, Lynn. So I cannot stop. So if anyone says, oh, you have to stop moving when you're speaking, I can't. I physically can't. So that's just a difference. So anyway, I didn't know I had it, and it seems so obvious now. So obvious. I was that doctor that really struggled. I was like, why is everyone so good and I'm just so rubbish? It's like, wow, they've got it so sorted and I just don't. And it was mostly admin things, it was mostly emails, it was mostly form filling, getting around the town before GPS happened, 2 home visits. It was really stressful because my map and I and the car, 3 items together, are not highly functional. But you kind of get to know places after a while, so I learned. Because I loved doing home visits, I loved seeing people in their own environment. But anyway, so back to the university years. So in those years, my mum actually told me recently, do you remember the time when you just left and the university phoned us and we had no idea where you were? And I was like, what? I don't remember doing that. She's like, oh yeah. And she told me the whole story and I was like, oh lordy. Yeah, I kind of remember that now. Yeah, I found it really hard to stay because it was so structured. Literally medicine, 9 to 5, Monday to Friday, learn. And getting myself on the altered time clock that we have, up and out and onto the first lecture, having walked or taken a taxi or a bus. If there was like 5 of us, we would share a taxi, so that was really cool. It was 60p each back then to get a taxi from Mary Hill to Glasgow University. That was amazing. So anyway, the story includes a lot of big events, including a serious attempt at suicide, because I felt like from going from 18 years old, life is sorted. I've got like so many qualifications, really done well at school. Yay, this is great, going to follow my dreams, going to be a doctor, this is amazing. I got into the medical school I wanted to get into. And this was my granddad's university as well, and I just thought I was following in his footsteps and all these things, and then I crashed. Boom. I was like, it was a wreck. So that was that. By the grace of God, definitely by the grace of God, I am still here. In university, I ended up taking an overdose and was aware of the fact that my flatmate would be away for about a week, I think he said he was going. And I was like, this is my chance then, just to quietly, and nobody will be disturbed. I mean, this is terrible. This is how I was thinking. And it might help people to know this, because I wasn't medically unwell. I was someone who didn't know I had ADHD, emotional. And no doctor has ever spotted it in me. No work colleague, no anyone has ever spotted that in me. And this was back in 1992 by that point, I think. So I was like 20, no 30, 20. 1972, 1990, yeah, 20. I was only 20 years old. I was a baby. And I was thinking that about myself. So one of the reasons why I'm speaking out is because if I could think like that, anyone can be thinking like that, and people don't understand it because they think, how could anyone do that? It's really not fair on the family. It's this, that, the next thing. But unless you are thinking inside your head, the world would be a better off place without me, you get that bad, there's nothing I can do to redeem myself. It's irrecoverable. It's unforgivable. It's terrible, terrible, terrible. I've never, ever been such a letdown in my entire life. That's when your mind really spirals you down. So recently, and I will get back to the university stories because I like them. It's part of my journey. And if it can throw light on how different we all are, then I'm so glad to speak it. So, right, where did I get to? It will come back. It will come back if it's important. So yeah, this is what happened to me next. Unbeknown to me, my lovely flatmate, I owe my life to him, and he came back early, like well early, and he found me in a terrible state and helped me, and I was blue flashing light ambulanced into, well, I ended up in Gartnavel. That's all I remember from that. It's a long time ago. And I was given the drip that saves your life. It was a paracetamol overdose, and if you don't get that in time, and if your levels are too high, then that will cause a really, really nasty end of life death, which actually a nursing friend of mine has nursed someone through a death like that, and she knew and had regret over her decision. So I always used to say to my patients when they came in that suicide is a permanent solution to temporary circumstances, and that is a fact. It's really hard to see it from the other side when you don't know what it's like to get yourself in such a horrific state of emotional dysregulation and overthinking and not understanding why you're suddenly just not getting on, and everyone's like, oh, she's this now and she's that now and she's this now and she's that, and then it winds you up even further because it's all more noise coming in your head telling you who you are when you're actually one of God's sacred divine creations, is my belief. And I didn't understand that back then, and now I can stand here and go, I've had my mind blown recently. I've got anatomy, physiology, biochemistry. What else have I got? Oh, this is a good one. The Fourth Phase of Water. That's a very good book. What else? Histology and embryology. I've got my ECG book, and I'm going to be talking about an ECG so that everyone can understand what your ECG is, because it's so freaking important. And you don't have to be a doctor or someone regularly looking at ECGs to learn a bit about them. And it's really cool once you know what's going on in here and everywhere else. It's so much better. So this is why I want to share information. I just want people to learn what we actually are, because we're actually incredible. So this book here, this is my granddad Hector's 1939 third British National Formulary, which was the one that came in just as we were going to war. So he had just graduated. This was the time when my granddad was also working in the Gorbals of Glasgow. He was a medical doctor as well. He used to apparently cycle around the Gorbals from place to place, and I think that he must have been an amazing doctor to do that. If anyone knows anything about the history of the Gorbals, this book is what he would have been referring to when he was prescribing things for these people if they could afford it or whatever. And this book is kind of the crossover point between when the old-fashioned remedies that he learned in botany at medical school in Glasgow, and the old tinctures, lotions, the old way of measuring things out, which was actually imperial measurements, which is another thing I will come back to eventually. Grains, drachmas, minims, and I can't see in this light. Grains, drachmas, minims, and ounces. Obviously fluid ounces, we know what they are. But that book is honestly fascinating because it does have a lot of recipes, and already they'd cut out the hawthorn. For hawthorn is a tree or bush, I think. I know them as trees on the island where my mum and dad live, and they have a red berry which is kind of surrounded with spikes. And traditionally it was extremely useful in patients with heart failure. And interestingly, around this time, it was transitioned out. So you couldn't have that anymore. And also there were, you can see in this book, which is well used, it falls open at interesting pages. It's got what I think are blood stains on it. In the first part of the book, right, it actually says that these are the drugs that they can no longer dispense as in the brand name of, because a lot of drugs were being brought in from Germany, and then obviously with the war starting they didn't want the doctors to be using those ones anymore, so they were suggesting as accurate as possible alternatives. So the drug industry had started by then, and this was a really important point in history because this was like a transition from an older to a newer way of doing things. So my granddad, who died in 1984, would have been seeing a lot of new medication coming in his career, but would have been familiar with the old herbal things, very familiar. So he was, after he graduated, he was sent to Nigeria. He actually wasn't going to be staying in Nigeria. He didn't think he was. He'd gone to the tropical diseases school in Liverpool, and then he was an officer in the RAMC, and then he went on a boat to travel down the west coast of Africa and go right up the other side. But they stopped in Nigeria. I'm just drawing imaginary Africa here in case you're wondering. I could do a chalk thing, but you don't need it. Down the fat bumpy side, down the bottom and up there was where he was supposed to be going. When they stopped in at Nigeria, there was an order that all of the medical doctors had to disembark because they were needed in Nigeria. So that's where he went. And the story goes, and I am looking into this, there's legit actual stuff that this can relate to. So I'm going to look into this, but because apparently enough time has gone by since he died that a relative can do that and find out what he got up to in Nigeria, because apparently it was terrible conditions out there, terrible, terrible conditions. And this is the very book he would have used. He would have had it in his pocket or whatever, because you had to measure these ingredients out, because if you put too much of something in, that was not a good idea. He also would have been using local quinine from trees, and he would have been facing yellow fever, cholera, malaria conditions, as well as apparently treating wounded soldiers and selecting fit Nigerians to be called up for duty as well. And apparently he was really well loved by the locals. I think he must have helped them in their mud huts, just as he would have been the exact same doctor who helped the people in the Gorbals, which was squalid conditions for Glasgow back then. So, my granddad, my hero. And so that is one of the pictures of Glasgow University that he bought one time at an auction. What happened there? Oh, her hat fell off. That's funny. Keeps falling off. I don't think she wants it. So, this is an arch at Kelvin Grove Art Gallery, and that's one of the statues there, and that is the view of the Glasgow University. And I had to do my interview to get into medical school right at the top of that beautiful building, and this is where we went every time we had an exam, because we didn't have the internet back then. So all the students would go right up there, and all of the exam results would be in these boards. That is exactly what my granddad would have done as well. And so it's lovely to have this. And it is it's important, because actually when I was having a bad time at university, hey, we're back in the university time zone again, I really couldn't understand why I physically couldn't get out of bed for some particular things to do with my learning. And yet, on a day when I was off, this is going to sound terrible, I would find myself at Kelvin Grove Art Gallery to look at Christ St. John the Cross, which was there, a Salvador Dali picture, just because I had to believe in something, and art was a medium that I have always loved. So loved it so much that my art teacher at school actually said, oh, what's medicine's gain is the art world's loss. And I even said to my mum, before I came to medical school, I've changed my mind, I want to be an artist. And she was horrified, and I'm really glad she was horrified, because I have no regrets. Because I get to incorporate art, history of medicine, Latin, music. Music makes your heart happy. Oh my goodness, I get to incorporate so many things that I've learned over the years into hopefully bringing things into some coherence of an understanding by the time I've actually expressed myself to you. But let's keep going. So yeah, medical school. So that was the thing. I had landed myself up in hospital, and the following day, the biochemistry lecturer had been my consultant on call, Professor Anna Dominicek, who is honestly an amazing, amazing woman. She, I believe, came over from Poland, and she's had an immense, massive, huge career of amazingness. She's an amazing lady. So she had taught me biochemistry as well. So she kind of knew me, and she came in, and this was the morning after, so I was fine now, physically fine. They had sorted me. Thank you, God, for having made that happen. And she came and she sat on my bed and she said, Lynn, do you know that if we hadn't have managed to give you that medication in time, you would have actually died? And I said, yeah, that was the plan. And so she just looked at me, and she was so gentle. She just sat on my bed, lovely bedside manner. She wasn't judgmental. She wasn't any of those things. She was amazing. And yeah, that was my first inroad into being a psychiatric patient at that point, which was interesting because I've been diagnosed with a few things by psychiatrists and I don't believe any of it. But anyway, still very grateful for all the experiences. I am not complaining because everything's been a learning point. And I hope that having been through experiences, if I share mine, it might help someone to hear it. So anyway, yeah. Medical school, yeah. So then the following year I was doing great, but I got pregnant and it was unplanned. And then the dean of the university was, and I missed a bit. I missed the bit where I repeated a year because I failed pharmacology. But that was good because it meant I got an extra year of clinical education that people don't normally get. I got another year of doing all the medicine and the surgery and all the things. So that was really good. And I got to do the pathology and microbiology and everything again. Anyway, yeah, that probably was quite a contributory factor because I'd lost my peer group suddenly because I had struggled so bad with pharmacology. Now I know why. Now I know why. It just doesn't make sense to me for strange reasons. However, don't make any medication changes based on anything that you hear me say. And I will be putting a disclaimer in the comments because I'm not here to talk about that. I'm here to talk about my experiences. And that was just how my mind worked at the time. It was great when all things made sense. If something didn't make sense, then I couldn't learn it on hyper-focus mode. That was the issue now in hindsight. If it didn't make sense to my brain, it was an effort to take in the information because when something makes sense, it's easy, it's a pattern, it's a, oh yeah, I get that. So I'm very good at pattern recognition, but I'm not so good at memorizing things by rote, which is why speeches and things don't really work. If they're written for me, I have to just speak. Sorry about that. So, no, I'm not sorry. I can't do anything about it, so you're just going to have to cope if you want to listen. And it's okay if you don't want to listen, that's fine. So, I just want to make a difference because I just think there's so many people struggling and they're different, and I'm so different to anyone else, and I've just been like trying to keep myself in a little box and like trying to do things that way because someone else said that's the way you do that, this is what you must do, this is what you have to do, stiff upper lip, Lynn, you just suck it up, buttercup. And I could never be the suck it up, buttercup person. I could never be contained. I'm a waterfall. You can't control me and expect me to be happy. You have to trust that I will make my own mind up. Sooner or later, I will make my own mind up of like, do I give more energy, more sunk cost? Just because I've sunk cost already doesn't, let's just anchor myself down. Let's just anchor myself down where it's like not a good place, No, can't do that. So unfortunately that has looked like a crazy person's life on the outside, and it does feel like it has been quite crazy. And I do apologise to everyone who's been on the receiving end of my crazy, but I'm actually really best on my own. I am. I'd rather be a hermit. I love my family. I love my family so much. So much. They get me because they know me better than anyone else does. So anyway, and they're all crazy like me. But this is my birthday. So yeah, university. So, oh God, there goes her hat. Whoops. I have to remember your hat's very vulnerable, child. I will stop bumping into you, I promise. Typical ADHD person. Bumping into people who are even just standing still. Nearly falling on top of people. Yeah, we got quirks, we got foibles. So, where did we get to? Yeah, so then I'm pregnant. I'm like, oh my goodness. Right. It was unplanned, but I was contracepted, and it still happened because it can happen. So, yeah, and I do have, I did do my DFFP exam. I still was clueless as to why the things didn't happen, but anyway, here was the chance to be a mum, and maybe, maybe I could focus on this and, take time out, come back to uni and finish it later and everything. I did try to persevere and stay at the uni when I was pregnant, but it was really difficult for scatterbrain reasons, squirrel brain, whatever you want to call it. And then I ended up at the dean's office again. He was getting to know me really well by this point. And bless his heart, he told me I should come off the antidepressants the first psychiatrist prescribed. Because, whoopsie, I can fall without even trying. I had a meeting with him, and it was going to be a really serious meeting, and so already it was like, because even if an ADHD person gets a message, we need to talk, you're like, oh my goodness, the dean of the medical school wanted to talk to me. I'm like, oh, okay, right, better look happy then. So it's all masking, right? So I went to the university, which his office was at the top of that tower out there. Went back there, and up those tippity top places. I went right up there, 7 floors, I think it was, something like that. Came bounding into his room. Hello, how are you doing today? And he's like, yeah. Are you on any medication just now? And I'm like, yes, I'm on an antidepressant. And he says, I think we should maybe think about you not being on an antidepressant. And I was like, oh, right. Oh, great. I thought I was cured. It was just brilliant. He was a pharmacologist by background. So, yeah, that was interesting. That wasn't the time I was pregnant. That was another time I was called up to his office. And you have to bear in mind, I was never called up to anyone's even table, never mind office, when I was at school. This was horrifying for me. I was like, oh lordy, I've really gone off the rails. So no, that was the other time after the overdose. This time I wasn't really managing, and I went up to his office pregnant, and he said, Lynn, he said, I think what we need to do here is that you need to leave altogether and have your baby and then come back. Because in any case, we're doing obs and gynae this year, and you really don't want to be a pregnant woman hanging around all that drama just now. I think he was protecting me because all sorts can happen. And so I left, had my baby, my beautiful daughter. And then I had to go back to uni in 1998 because it was either then or the next year, or I couldn't finish the course because they were changing to the new course. So we did the very traditional old science stuff. The new students were going to be learning in a very different way, but to include science from the other direction down rather than the foundation of science going then up, right? So we have very different experiences, and I thought, well, since I've done a lot of anatomy, etc., I'd love to talk about it, because who ever hears about embryology that's not in science, or whoever gets to hear about anything particular that might be helpful just to modify their way they think about things, do things. So I've also trained in hypnotherapy, never practiced it. I did that just after I left medicine in 2012. And so another thing I can talk on, and actually met Matthew Ferguson, who's lovely. I met him not that long ago, and hopefully I'll catch up with him again soon. And yeah, so it incorporates brainwaves. So we've got the homeopathy, the energy healing stuff that I've known since 2004. I used to prescribe it to my patients in general practice. On one occasion, I did have a partner, lovely partner, refer me a patient of his who had been through neurology, medicine and ENT, as well as being helped by my partner initially and all through with these headaches that she couldn't get on top of. And so he said, would you be able to help her with some homeopathy? And I was like, oh, I'll do my best. Yeah, absolutely. So she did see me in a 10-minute appointment, and it worked. It was an energetic problem. And I will be explaining on my channel why homeopathy works. I'll be explaining about emotions and water. I will be explaining about thinking and brain waves. And I will be speaking about this great book, the Holy Bible, as it has so much relevance to anatomy. And so I'm really looking forward to talking about all this, because I think it's really cool. It's really cool to be excited about the human body and how it all works and how it's like amazing. We're literally liquid crystalline creatures and we didn't even know it. We've got a bouncy boingy heart that's supposed to be having fun. We're here supposed to be having fun. We're here to make nice music in the world. We're here to dance when we want to. We're here to make art. We're here to have, just do your own thing. So as long as you're not harming anyone else, that is the thing. So how do we sort all that lot out? So I do want to start with just finishing the homeopathic part, because you'll hate me if I don't finish it. So I was going to be doing this, and I was like, I think I'll need to take some gelsemium. So it's Gel. I'll write it. Gelsemium. Gelsemium is so good for stage fright. As you can see, I do not have stage fright. I might not be doing a great job, but I'm still not having stage fright. Gelsemium. We'll say 30C tablets. They can't cause anyone harm. They will only help stage fright if it's stage fright that is the like rabbit in the headlights moment, right? You're like, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to say. So the reason why I loved it for my patients was because if they had, for example, a court appearance or an exam coming up, a driving test, you cannot give them diazepam, clearly, right? For a driving test, you're not going to give anything that dumbs them down. This does not. It works on your fear of standing up and saying something, whatever the situation. So gelsemium 30C. Amazing. And then we've got, I didn't need to take this because I wasn't in this state. So really, homeopathy is really just about getting people's energy sorted. There's a buckle in the energetic system somewhere that's where the water of us is, and we are about 70% water, I think, something like that. So memory is stored in the water of us. So if we take a remedy, this helpful for an old energetic injury of whatever nature that works on the energy to sort it, then we get a problem solved. If we don't have the right remedy for the particular situation, it's not going to do anything, but it's not going to cause harm. But there's particular patterns that are really easily helped. So this one's for stage fright. This one, argentum, which is silver. Nitricum, silver nitrate in homeopathic form. So there's not any silver nitrate left in it. That's important to know about. You're not going to poison yourself with any actual chemical molecule in that water because it's been diluted down so many times that it's impossible due to Avogadro's law, I think is what it is. So this argentum nitricum 30C tablet is the ideal one for the type of situation where your nerves are making you go, oh no, I'm going to be late, I'm rushing around, blah, blah, blah. It's like the rushing around of the white rabbit in Alice in Wonderland. That's what that remedy is for. I'm late, I'm late. Oh, where's my watch? That didn't go smooth. I'm late for a very important date. That kind of like energy, right? Not literally, I'm frozen, I can't move, right? So these two are amazing. And then there's another one that I really, really love for shock or that kind of thing. I didn't think I was going to go here, but it's the perfect opportunity, so bear with. I need a little duster. Sorry about the horrible noise. Can't be helped. Okay, so. Oh yeah, that's the thing, noise. Noise is the issue. I'll come back to that at some point, if not today, maybe another day. Aconite. This is a miracle one. This one, aconite. Again, 30C is plenty good enough, just perfect. It doesn't matter about the strength, right? Aconite, so that is from monk's hood, which is also called wolf's bane. And that plant is a beautiful, it's quite crazy actually. It's a beautiful long flower and has like purple flowers that look like those monks wearing those hoods, you know, those like, you know, and they used to put it on the tips of arrows, which is why it is called wolf's bane, because it's really, really poisonous. So that plant is not good to have in your garden. Danger, danger. But when it is diluted down, loads and heavily shaken in between times, that puts the imprint, the energetic memory, it's like a electromagnetic printout into the water, which stores the emotions, because that is how we are emotional, because of water. That's why God created the water, essential to life, and so we can feel and flow with emotions, because if we don't, it damages us. So that's one of my things. Aconite 30C. So aconite is extremely handy to have in emergency, so really good to carry it around in your handbag. And it's the kind of remedy that I think I'm going to die happened, like shock. or in shock, just broken a leg. I gave it to Marcy when she broke her leg when she was 8. Aconite, arnica, and hypericum. Amazing. She went into a sort of dream state. So aconite is a brilliant one for extreme shock, like predicting the time. I'm gonna die. I'm gonna, like, that kind of thing, like that really, really awful thing, or has just seen something or witnessed something really shocking in that kind of state, and it's amazing. So I'm gonna stop with the little remedy session here. I actually might ask Dr. Riley if he could advise on how I could put some content about homeopathy. So you can never guarantee it's going to work. You can never use it to replace medical care because it's running on a different system. So it's like when you're learning to tell the time and you've got the hour hand, it's strictly what the hour hand is doing on the clock. It's going round, taking an hour to move to the next station, right? On the same clock as the big hand is turning round, big hand, the minute hand, 60 minutes, it only has to go around one circle and it takes 60 minutes. This is what I'm saying. They've got a different scale, but they're on the same face. And then the second hand, it's 60 seconds to go round once. Yeah, that's what I'm trying to say. The hour hand goes round 12 times. Oh, I got there in the end. I was teaching Hunter how to tell the time and tie his shoelaces yesterday, so my brain's a little bit like, oh. Anyway, so it's like having the two different hands on the clock doing different things. Medicine is working on a very different clock face. Put it that way. Medicine, classic medicine that we're all used to, that we go to the doctor for, all these things, works one way. And homeopathy works on a different kind of clock face of, we're just not working on that. We're working on the emotional energy systems in the body, right? So they can be complementary. You can take the two things at one go. It's safe. I was actually in the LMC, the local medical committee meeting, when it got raised by the Area Drugs and Therapeutics Committee. Must have been about 2011, I think, because it was really close to the end of my partnership in general practice. And the most interesting occasion of those meetings, which I did find really, really hard to sit through, I'm not gonna lie, I was really glad I was there for the one where the LMC was being asked to consider what the Area Drugs and Therapeutics Committee were suggesting regarding homeopathy prescriptions in the Highlands. So the suggestion was, there's no evidence that they work, and therefore to cut the budget, we'll not have doctors allowed to prescribe them anymore. Under the NHS this is, right? And the LMC were like all sitting around the table, and I was part of it, and a few people were saying things, and it was kind of generally being decided, yeah, that's fair enough, they're making a good point, yeah, we should probably just agree to that. I was like, hold on for a minute here. I was able to say that I use it regularly, that I was trained with Dr. Riley, all the things, and that some of my patients would definitely disagree with what is going on with this. And we downgraded the response to, fair enough, you want to do that with the NHS, but we're keeping being allowed to prescribe it privately when patients would like it. And so it got downgraded, so you don't have to be a rogue practitioner to be prescribing homeopathy in the Highlands, because you would be seen going against ordinary practice if the LMC had agreed. That's what I thought was happening at the time, but a lot of those meetings were very, very high functioning minded people, and I was very much a listener and trying to just bring things back to practice and be sensible in the time. But I really knew that it was a good idea not to just blindly agree with the Area Drugs and Therapeutics Committee, because they don't have personal experience. If they didn't even know what homeopathy does, if they've never used it or whatever, then they're not going to know. So that's that. So I think we've probably done enough for one day, and I'm going to cut this short now. I really, really have enjoyed it. Are we going to cut it short? Yeah, I'll cut this and then I'll do another. So thank you if you made it to the end, and I will be coming back to discuss this person here, because she's not been properly introduced yet, and I would really like to do that.